Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. James here from Poseidon Miniature Painting. I've got one question. Do you hate painting yellow? Every time you try, does it end up patchy, streaky, you've got fingerprints in there, you build up texture in the colour. By the time you get halfway through painting your models, you start thinking about changing to a new chapter. Today I'm going to show you a super quick and simple way to get your Imperial Fists battle ready and onto the tabletops. Obviously you could use this recipe for any chapter where you're going to need to paint yellow. We're looking for bold, bright yellow models, some nice black contrasting details and some amazing looking models on the tabletop. Today we're going to be painting the new Saturnine Dreadnought in the Imperial Fist colour scheme. This is going to be predominantly yellow with some nice black detailing. We're going to also paint a squad of Saturnine Terminators in a reverse scheme. So they're going to have the mainly black body to the armour with some nice yellow accents on there to really make them pop. This will give you a couple of units that will look absolutely brutal on the tabletop. Get this whacked out on your full army and it will look amazing. So, time to stop being scared of painting yellow. Let's get into the video. Okay, let's get stuck into this Saturnine Dreadnought. So, I've built the model, I've also built a squad of Terminators. They've all been cleaned. The Terminators are fully built, however the Dreadnought is blue tacked together just to make it a little bit easier later for sub-assembly. First thing I've done is prime the shoulder pads in black as well as the Terminators because they're going to be that reverse scheme. I've now got Vallejo grey blue in my airbrush and we're going to highlight the panels. So as you can see, I'm just going to layer this over the top of the black. You can go fairly heavy with this to be honest, because as it dries, it does dry darker. And also as we add in more details and colour to the model, this is going to look a little bit more washed out. So we can go quite strong with the colour and it will still read as black on the model. Next up, we're going to repeat the process with the Saturnine Terminators. So the idea here is the model is mainly going to be in black and then we're just going to do the shoulder pads in a nice bright yellow, and this will contrast the Dreadnought, which is going to be fully yellow with black shoulder pads. So I'm just going to do the same thing as we did for those Saturnine shoulder pads, but to the main bulk of the armour. So I'm hitting it from above with the airbrush with the Vallejo grey blue. This is, to be honest, going to be an army piece, so you can go sort of rough and ready, nice and quick, just a little bit of contrast. I'm sort of hitting it slightly from above, thinking about where the light would hit the model from, but don't stress yourself out too much about it. So the Dreadnought has been fully primed in black. Obviously you can see there's a lot of area there that have been missed. That's just because I've taken off the shoulder rack and it reveals all the grey plastic, which isn't going to be seen once it's fully built. So we're going to start building up a nice base colour before we put that yellow into effect. Here I've got Mournfang Brown thinned through the airbrush. Again, we're probably going to cover most of the armour panels with this, mainly from above, and anything that's sort of shooting in an upward direction from below, we're going to try and go a little bit gentler, a little bit thinner to leave those shadows in place. We're just going to build up a couple of coats of that to build up the Mournfang Brown to be brighter in the strongest areas where the light would be hitting the model. So we're going to repeat the process on the Saturnine Terminators. Just a reminder, this is purely for the areas that are going to be yellow armour. So we're just going for the shoulder pads here on the Terminators. I've masked it off using AK Camouflage plastic putty, which is brilliant. It's like black flubber, essentially. You can squash it in there, airbrush over it, and when you peel off, it never takes any paint with it. Then you can scrunch it back up and chuck it in the tin. So it's really worth using for this. I'm just covering the main bits of the black armour that we've already airbrushed with the grey blue because I don't want to have to repaint that. It doesn't matter about anything else as it'll be getting covered with the brush. So we're just coming in with that Mournfang Brown and hitting the 2 front and 2 rear pads. So the idea behind this Mournfang Brown is it's going to give us a nice rich base colour once the yellow goes over the top. So for the areas I want to be brighter, we're just going to mix in some silver grey. So this is Mournfang brown with a small amount of silver grey added to give whatever level of highlight you're looking for. As you can see, I'm just going to work this into the areas that would be hit most by the light coming down on the model and the focal points I want to attract the eye to. So mainly tops of those chest pads and the tops of the knees. We're not really going to bother with the low down areas because we want the highlights at the top to be brighter, because obviously where the light hit it, we wouldn't have the same level of brightness all around the model, to try and give it a little bit more realism. So here you can see where we've built that up to. So quite bright on the front there. Again, that's not completely white, that's just where the light is hitting the model. But this will give us a nice basis for the yellow transitions. We're just going to do the same again on the Saturnine Terminators. Mainly just pick an area of interest, whether it's the center or top of the pad, just to get some nice transitions. It doesn't have to be exact to where the light would hit with realism. It's just, you know, something that looks nice as a battle-ready army, essentially. Okay, now it starts to get fun. So next up we've got our Uriel yellow, again through the airbrush, and we're just going to start layering this over the top of the brown, and this is going to build up after a few layers until you get the strength of colour that you're looking for. So I'm just going to take my time here and build up the layers, let it fully dry in between so we don't start getting it pooling or dribbling. I'm going to leave all this footage in so you can see the transition, but I am going to speed it up a little bit just so you can follow along, see how we build up the strength of that colour, but without you having to watch 10 minutes of me doing this. Okay, with that done on the Terminators, we're now going to go back to the Dreadnought. So this is mainly yellow for the entire body, so we're just going to build up these layers. Take your time, nice and easy. You can always go over again and build up that colour, but if you go a little bit heavy, you're going to end up with pooling and dribbling and trying to sort of dab it off with a piece of kitchen wall and things like that. So build it up nice and easy. The paint is quite thin, and we're just going to gradually build up the colour. It'll probably take 3 or 4 passes to get it to a level that we're looking for realistically. So we've added a couple of layers of yellow, letting it dry fully in between, and this is where we are at the moment. I want the saturation a little bit stronger, so I'm going to repeat the process again. It's up to yourself, depends whether you're looking for like a warm or cool yellow as to what point you stop. This is us now at 4 layers of yellow, so I'm much happier with this. It's bright but not crazy, and we've still got some subtle shadows, especially from underneath. It's actually crazy to build this model, there's so many pieces, but one of the things that I do like is that you can take those shoulder racks off and they just slot into place, so it gives you some nice easy sub-assemblies for building and painting. We've also left the arms off because we want them to be black as well, so we've airbrushed them in the same way, and then we're going to paint the weapon options. These are the 2 helmet options that came in the box. I couldn't really decide which one or whether I wanted to paint both, but in the end I went for the one on the left, and we'll cover how to paint the helmet and the lenses a little bit later on in the video. Okay, so this is the longest, probably most grindy stage of the model. It's optional. If you want to just go in with your metallics and details, you can. I would highly recommend going in with black. This is Vallejo 950 black. It gives you such a good base colour for when you put metallics on that it really strengthens them. You don't get that sort of opacity in your streakiness in your silvers and things like that. So it is worth taking the time, and honestly it didn't take that long. Bear in mind the Terminators are airbrush black, so that's a bit of a cheat code. But here, yeah, just take your time, work your way around, and it's going to pay off once we get to those metallic details. Okay, we're looking pretty good already, so it is worth it. I know it probably seems a massive pain to do the black, but yeah, look, we've got a good base to work from now. Our model's looking pretty decent, and we could honestly chuck this on the tabletop, assuming we gave him some arms and a head, and he'd be fairly good to go. In terms of the Terminators, there's no blocking in to do because everything's black, so yeah, super easy. If you're looking for a really easy scheme, then you can paint black armor, obviously, but yellow is worth it, that it'll really pop once we get to the next steps. We're now going to block in our metallics. I'm using Metal and Alchemy Decayed Metal for any of the gold, and we're going to just take our time, work our way around. I hadn't really planned out or referred to box art. I'm going to do the trim and a few details really. Again, we're trying to make this look nice for tabletop gaming, so I'm not stressing too much about what pieces, what conduit should be exactly what colour. I absolutely love using the decayed metal. It's got great coverage and you can do a lot with it. You could either go for a really dull metal or you can highlight it up, so it's really versatile. As you can see, we've worked our way around, picking out all the trim and any details that would look nice in this colour. I'm then going to move on to the Saturnine Terminators. Again, trim, Aquillas, a few little studs on the hands and weapon tips, and we're good to go. Next up, we're going to move on to the silver metallics. For this, I'm using Vallejo gunmetal. Great coverage again, just work your way around. We should only need one coat for this. We'll get away with it because we've got that 950 black underneath. If we didn't have that, it'd probably take a few coats and it could look a little bit streaky and marbled. So, well worth doing. I know I've said it 3 times, but honestly, trust me, it's worth doing to give you a stronger finish at the end. So I'm just going to work my way around, picking out all the details that are going to be our silvers. And our final metallic colour, I'm going to use Darkstar Blackened Bronze. To be honest, you could use any metallic that you've got just to give a little bit of contrast between. I didn't want everything to be silver or gold, so if you've got a brass, if you've got a copper, any other metallic really that you could use just to pick out some details and break it up a little bit. As you can see, once we've got that done across all the models, it's looking pretty good. We could get these on the table for sure. Yeah, that reverse scheme, I'm really happy with how that's come out. Next up, we're going to give them a coat of Vallejo gloss varnish. This is to make the surface nice and smooth before we apply our decals. I'm also going to use Micro Set and Micro Sol for this. I've marked the lids of mine with a 1 and 2 because I always forget which is which and what order to put them on. So Micro Set goes on first with the number 1. If you're not sure, it's the one that smells like vinegar. If you don't use these for your decals and just use water, that's absolutely fine, but they are worth picking up and they're pretty cheap and last for ages. Micro Set number 1 is for actually softening the decal and it improves how well it sticks to the model. And then number 2 is your Micro Sol, so that will soften the decal itself, helps thin down that membrane, which will help it sort of conform to a bit more irregular shape. So some of the awkward shoulder pads for like your troops, for example, it's sort of really valuable there. Once I've gave it a soak and got it into position, I kind of leave it a little bit with the micro sol on there just to soften it, and then start to wick away the moisture. Again, take the time because you don't want to start dragging the transfer around. We're just going to work to get rid of those little air bumps at the edges, and then we're going to go across both squads, applying all the decals. I've not really looked at box art or anything. I've just kind of gone with what I think looks cool. And then, yeah, happy with that. We're going to start to weather the models. So you could use your standard washes here, Adrax Earthshade, Known Oil, things like that, but it's well worth using oils. If you haven't tried it, honestly, give it a go. You get a great effect. You can move them around for ages. If you're not happy, you can wash them back off using a bit of mineral spirit. Super easy. So here in my palette tray, I'm just going to make up some mixes of the various oils I'm using. Again, these are just 3 that I grabbed off the shelf, to be honest. Some browns and earthy tones to make it interesting, and I'm just mixing them with some odorless mineral spirit. Make sure you get an odorless one, otherwise you're going to give yourself a headache and don't know where your painting session's going to end up. I quite like to add a little sort of neat bit of each one onto the palette as well, so if I want to dip that onto the model I can, and then you can always use various mixtures of the mineral spirit to thin it down, drag it, get staining effects. And then once you've done this, you want to leave it for 24 hours to dry realistically. It's actually really cool because when you do leave them to dry, they look pretty good the next day. Like, you get sort of that matte earthy look to the models. Looks really good. So I'm just playing around with a few of them here. I'm going to sort of give the full model a general wash really with like the sepia, because I want the whole thing to look grimy. This is super thin down, and then I can always wick it off with a clean brush or a bit of kitchen roll or something like that. Just make sure you don't use your painting brush here. I've got a few old battered ones that I'll use for oils. With the neat oil, you can dab it on wherever you want in little patches, and then use a little bit of neat mineral spirit just to drag it, smear it. You can have fun with this, honestly. It's really good fun and you can't really go wrong with it. If you're not happy, you can, even once it's dried, you can reactivate it with mineral spirit and a cotton bud and scrub it off. So literally just play around. I'm just going to leave you to watch this and see the end results. Okay, so we've played around with the mineral spirit and we've left the models to dry. So as you can see, they've got quite a nice matte finish now to those smears and stains. In terms of the metallics, just give them a full wash of any of the mixtures, depending how dark you want it to be, but just get it whacked on there. You can't really mess it up. Go to town with it, basically. It's quite a lot of fun to use the oils. Okay, so the oil washes are dry and we've now stuck the models onto the completed bases. If you want the recipe for this basing scheme, in the description there will be a link for a free basing tutorial video for this exact scheme. Super easy, really quick, using lots of pigment, and it's really effective for your army. Next up, I'm going to move on to the yellow armor. So again, optional. If you want to finish here and just paint the helmet and the weapons, you can. I want to just push the highlights a little bit more, so I'm going back in with our Uriel yellow, and I'm just going to add a few neat edge highlights. I'm not doing the entire model, and then a few messy scratches and stipples, and just to give it a little bit of interest really, and a little bit more contrast. Again, just repeat the process on the Saturnine Terminators. Again, a little bit of highlighting around the panels and areas of interest, and then just some scratchy stippling. It's just to give it a little bit more brightness, so it's a little bit more eye-catching really once we get them on the tabletop. Next up, we're going to highlight the gold areas. So I am using Dwarven Gold from Metal and Alchemy. So it's quite a strong contrast between the colour underneath, but that's fine. We're literally just looking for it to be quite bright and vibrant. So I'm going to use the side of the brush, quick edge highlight around all the panels, pick out a few rivets, and then mainly just add some little scratches, marks, nothing too sort of serious here. Just work your way around. It's going to look good once we get it all worked in. Any of the areas like this where the light is going to hit it a little bit more, I'm sort of building up a little bit more intensity of scratches. But yeah, and same with the muzzles of the weapons, just going to sort of paint basically the top half where the light would hit it. Gives a super easy contrast and it's quite effective straight away. I'll speed this up again just so you can see the full process, but I'm not really being too precious here. I'm mainly picking out the eye-catching details and rivets and adding a few scratches and points of interest, and yeah, just have a little bit of fun with it really. Again, back to the Saturnine Terminators and repeat the process. I absolutely love these models. I wasn't sure when they first came out, but I kind of think because this Fists army is a personal army that I've used for gaming with some friends at Warhammer World, I'm kind of thinking now about trying to do basically just a full army of Terminators. It's not that many models, they're quite easy to paint, and it looks really effective. So yeah, they've definitely grown on me, to be honest, and I'll be probably painting some more in the future. So with that, we're looking pretty good now. Quite happy with the colour scheme. As I was saying, the black shoulder pads, even though we went quite heavy with the highlight, they read as black now on the model because of all the other colours. So we're just going to go in again with the Vallejo grey blue and add a little bit of texture. So a little bit of highlighting around the vents and panels, and then just some scratching, stippling over the transfers, over some of the smoother areas just to break it up and give a little bit of detail. This is definitely just optional tweaks now to get the model where you're happy with it. Again, you could go in and stipple or dry brush, use a sponge. I'm just happy just adding a little bit of texture to the model just to make it more interesting really, but I'm not trying to get really neat volumetric highlights or edge highlights in there. Same with the armour of the Saturnine. I'm just gonna pick out where the light would hit, but I'm just doing it in sort of scratchy volumes really, where I'm not trying to be too accurate or neat or blend it in. I think it gives a good effect to the model actually, where it sort of looks a little bit more scratched and damaged and textured. So yeah, just work your way around, add these highlights in, and it'll make that black armour pop really quickly. So we're happy with the base of the model, and we're going to move on to the Saturnine Dreadnought helmet. So this is, to be fair, one of the more important parts of the model. If you've got good faces and good bases and good glow effects, it'll really elevate the colour scheme. So we're going to go for a red helmet here. I'm just going to base it in with Galvoback Red, however you want to pronounce that colour. It's thinned down on the wet palette, as you can see. Don't try and do this in one coat. All you're going to do is create texture and leave it patchy. Let that dry. After a few coats, I'm going to go in with Corn Red, and we're going to paint most of the area but try and leave some shadows. I actually decided as well, I'm going to paint, as you look at it, the left side of the helmet brighter and the right side is going to be much darker. So we're not going to go with very many highlights on that right side, and we're going to leave a lot more of the Galvoback red showing through. So as you can see, I've picked out the main line sort of crease at the top of the helmet where light would hit it, and yeah, I'm just going back and forward. When you lift the brush, try and leave it somewhere in the middle, so when you get that little pool of paint, it's not in the shadows and doesn't leave staining. If you leave it in the middle, it's going to be covered by each highlight. So we're just building this up super thin. It's not quite as watered down as where it would be like a glaze, but it's probably at least 1:1, if not 2 parts water to 1 part paint. Don't load your brush up too heavily or it'll just run everywhere. And yeah, just build it up, get these layers. This is the process we're going to do with every color really. So once you can get used to working with that paint consistency and control, it really makes it helpful for glazing and building up sort of good transitions of color. Next up, we're just going to repeat the process with Mephiston Red. The key here is to try and leave a little bit of each colour previous showing through. We don't want to block it all out because we'll lose the transitions. So we're going to pick out this is almost like a chunky edge highlight with the Mephiston Red, and then it'll get finer and finer now because we've got a nice transition from the dark to the mid-tone, and then we're just going to keep that going with the lighter colours. Again, I'm going to speed this video up just so you can watch it all the way through and without me chatting over the top of it. Okay, same again with Evil Sunz Scarlet. We're now going to start adding a few little scratches and a little bit of textures to the armour as well. This is our last sort of blending colour, if you will, before we're going to go in with a little bit more of a crisper edge highlight with our Wild Rider Red. So yeah, a little bit of scratching, a little bit of stippling. We want the sort of, I quite like the colour blend to be smooth, but then them also to be texture, so I quite like little bits of the brighter colours in little scratch and dots and things like that in the darker area, because it really stands out there and it sort of reads as like a little paint chip, right, that the light's catching onto. Then we are going to jump in with our Wild Rider Red. So this is the last colour we're going to use, and this is really just for edge highlighting. We're going to pick out those crisp edges. Again, we haven't edge highlighted the entire model for time, and it's not really the scheme we're looking for, but it's worth doing on the helmet because this is going to be the focal point. We're going to have a nice bright armour, and then we're going to give him some nice glowing blue eye lenses. Okay, time to give him some nice glowing eyes. So we're going to use Sotek Green. This is one of my favourite colours, I think, from G-Dub, to be honest. It's kind of a nice tealy greeny blue. So we're going to obviously base in the eye lens, and then we're going to water it down and do a little glaze underneath. This is to create the first step of the glow effect. So as you can see, I'm starting outside the lens and then dragging the brush into the lens. Again, that little pool of paint that comes off the brush when you lift it off the model, we want to leave that in the eye itself. If you go the opposite direction, you're going to create little puddles and it's going to ruin the effect. Next up, I've added a small amount of cold white, so we've got a 1:1 mix. I'm now going to edge highlight the sort of bottom edge of the lens, so we want that eye to look like it's glowing out of the socket. So we're going to catch that bottom edge with a sharp edge highlight, and then we're also going to repaint sort of as much of that lens as we can whilst leaving a nice border of Sotek Green around the edge. Next up, again, you'll hear me say this a lot over the videos, repeat the process. This is now Sotek Green with 2 parts white, and we're just going to do the same thing again and then build up to 3 parts white. to give us a nice bright sort of inner glow coming out of the helmet of the lens itself. So these are actually similar colours that we're going to use for the plasma glow of the weapons. I'm not going to cover it on this video just because I'm already filming actually a tutorial of a few different ways to do plasma weapons, because it comes up quite a lot, and we're going to offer some options using the airbrush and some options painting by hand. Not everyone has got access to an airbrush, so there'll be videos with and without, and plasma glow is one of those that will be coming up soon. And our final highlight, super small, super centered. Try and make sure they're both equal so he doesn't look like he's got wonky eyes. Cold white, thin down, do it in a couple of layers. Less is more with this. You don't want to fill the whole lens. You literally just want that center to give it the strongest intensity, to give that glow effect. So take your time with that, add the cold white, bosh. Again, we're just going to repeat the process with the Saturnine Terminators, and there we have it. We have our finished scheme. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you on the next one.